Please help me welcome J Loren Norris.
John Maxwell says, the dream, it's free. It's free to dream. It's free to have a dream. You can dream anything you want to. You can have any vision you want to. But the journey is going to cost you. That's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. And I have to agree, the dream is free. Imagine anything you want. Create any grand vision of what your life is going to be, what your future is going to be, the lives you're going to impact, the things you'll do, the money you'll make, the places we'll go. But just know this, the minute you embark on that journey, you're going to have to pay a price. As John Maxwell's father used to say, you can either pay now and play later, or you can play now and pay later, but either way, you're going to pay. You can play now and pay later, or you can pay now and play later, but either way, you're going to pay. As Dave Ramsey often says, you got to save now like nobody else, so later you can live like nobody else. See, all of these things come back to one thing, and that is you have to decide in the leadership of your own life, in the decisions that you make every day, am I more concerned about instant gratification or future reward? And it'd be really easy if there was a chart, if there was a graph, if there was a map that you could look at and say, well, if I do this now, then I can have that later. If you could look right now at 16, 18, 19 years old and know if I just do these 5 steps, everything in the world is going to be exactly the way I want it when I'm 25, 35, 45, 55, 65, 75 years old. I will have the house I want, the spouse I want, the job I want, the career I want, the retirement I want, the vacations I want, the car I want. I'll have everything I want if I do these 5 things. That would make doing those 5 things so much easier. In fact, it would be phenomenal if any of us could predict with any sort of accuracy what the future holds. I've interviewed a handful of widows on my various TV shows and podcasts. Most of them had no idea what was coming. In fact, I remember conducting a funeral service. It's been several years ago now. But I was requested to conduct this funeral service because the woman literally woke up in the bed next to her husband, who was only 37. He had sleep apnea. He had struggled with that. They went to bed. Their toddler crawled in the bed with them. She kept feeling the toddler move all night and didn't realize that her husband had stopped breathing in the middle of the night. Normally, she would feel him, but the toddler between them, she didn't. He stopped breathing in the middle of the night, and when she woke up, he was gone. Can you imagine your spouse leaving this life, lying in the bed next to you? Wow. But you know what? Nothing in her life had prepared her for that moment. Nothing financially, nothing emotionally, nothing relationally. If she had looked back 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, there was no indicator that if I do this, that's the outcome. There wasn't one. Now, there are some things in life, some decisions you make in life, like, will I drink too much and get behind the wheel of a car? The odds that you're going to either get in big trouble or create big trouble, those go up really high the minute you mix steering wheels and alcohol. Those risk rewards, they're really obvious, and they're very well connected to each other, very well documented, very well historically researchable. And there are people who would say, well, you know, I could be an all-star athlete all of my life. Maybe you know the name June Hunt. Maybe you know, what was her name? She dove into a swimming pool as an all-star athlete at 17 years old, hit the bottom of the pool, and spent the rest of her life in a wheelchair. That probably hasn't just happened once, but I promise you, when she got up that day, when she was practicing that week, when she was diving off that board time after time after time after time after time after time, she never thought, I'll spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair. Now, she's written many books since then. She's spoken and sung on many stages since then. She's actually done paintings with her mouth that are incredible. I don't know that any of those things were in her planned future either. It's free to dream, but the journey is going to cost you something. It was Valentine's weekend, 2012. It was just starting to rain. It was cold. And I watched my wife walk down the sidewalk, carrying her last little box of her most precious possessions, the breakables, the most valuable to her sentimental possessions, to put them in the back of the car and drive away. She wasn't leaving me, but we as a family were leaving the house we built only 8 years before. Built it from the ground up. We picked the color of the carpet. We picked the cabinets. We chose everything. We built it from the ground up. We were on a 15-year mortgage, and we were 8 years into a 15-year mortgage. We were almost halfway done paying off our house. And the bank made a mistake, made a decision, did something differently than the law permitted them to do, and yet, because they had bigger lawyers than us, at the end of the battle of almost a year, we lost our savings. We spent thousands of dollars in attorney's fees, and we still lost our house. We spent the next 2 years living in somebody else's trailer house in the country, driving back and forth. That was not in my plan. In fact, if I go back through the manual all the way back to the day that I met my bride, neither one of us thought that was coming. Neither one of us planned for that to happen. Neither one of us would have said, ooh, pick me. I want to be the one to lose my family home, the one that my kids grew up in. I want to give that up. Wasn't there. We didn't pick that as part of our journey, but it shaped us in a whole new way. There's a price to pay for resilience. There's a price to pay for determination. See, that's been almost 12 years ago. That was about halfway into our marriage. And our marriage is just as strong today as it was the day before we lost our house. Oh, we had some tough times. We had some emotionally tough times. We've lost loved ones. Both my wife and I, we both now buried our mothers. We both said goodbye to the woman who raised us. There's a price to pay on this journey. We've seen our kids grow up and have kids of their own, go through great relationships, get married, get divorced. We didn't plan that. We didn't want that. We didn't want our kids to suffer through divorce. We've seen that already. Her parents were divorced. My parents were divorced. My wife was divorced when I met her. We didn't want that for anybody in our life. There's a price to be paid for resilience. There's a price to be paid for that mental toughness that says, whatever you bring at me, I will fight my way through it. I don't quit that easy. I don't give up on my faith. I don't give up on my family. And I certainly am not going to give up my freedom. There was a season when I made this commitment to join the John Maxwell team, when I decided motivational speaking and public speaking and transforming lives, that's what I'm made for. That's what I'm wired for. And just about the same time we made the decision to do that, the AC unit went out in our house. I don't mean the little blower motor. I mean the whole thing. Every estimate that we got to fix it was $5,000 to $10,000. And when we got the invitation to join the John Maxwell team, that bill was about the same. And I went to my family and I said, I can do this, looking forward to our future, to say we'll have new opportunities, we'll have an expanded opportunity, we'll have more income, we'll have a chance to change people's lives. Could take a minute, or we can spend that money right now and put new heat and AC in our home. And as a family, we decided, not me, we as a family, everybody had a voice. We decided to go 11 months with no heat or AC in our home so that I could join the John Maxwell team and invest in the dream. The dream is free. The journey is going to cost you. It's going to cost you emotionally. It's going to cost you financially. Might cost you relationally. We've had those relationships with people that when we met them, we thought this is going to be a lifelong journey. We're so much alike. They have dreams. They have goals. We have dreams. We have goals. Their dreams and our dreams. Their goals and our goals. They look exactly the same. We are going to be fellow sojourners. This synergy is going to be incredible. Only to find a few weeks, days, months, some years later, we're parting ways. Things didn't keep up. There was too much drama in the relationship. There was not enough trust in the relationship. There was outside contention thrown into the relationship. Maybe you've been there as well. You build strong relationships with employees or employers, with business partners. You walk down the journey a little way and then you realize we're not going the same direction at the same pace. In fact, in some cases, I'm not even sure we're going the same direction anymore. Things have changed. They have changed. I have changed. And you would hope so, right? You hope that you grow up a little bit, that you learn new things, that you take new actions. But that doesn't always mean that you grow together. The dream is free. The journey is going to cost you. I have an extensive library, for an individual anyway. And that library, we buy as many of the books as we can at Goodwill when we go to the Goodwill store, at the half-price bookstores, when we have to spend a little more. And when there's no other option, when it's a brand new book and I can't find it anywhere else, I'll break down and pay retail. But if I tried to go back and rebuy every book that I've got, every commentary series, every collection, I think I've got a little over half of John Maxwell's 90 books that he's published. A little over half of them. I still have some more to buy, but the ones that I do have, almost every one of them I've read through cover to cover. You can see my notes because I date my notes and my commentaries and my own unique thoughts, and that's so they can correspond back to my journal. But that's not free either. The amount of time that I've invested in studying and learning leadership has come at a price. No time on the golf course, little time for play, little time for hobbies. I make time for my family. I make time for my kids and my grandkids, and not nearly as much as I'd like to, but I make time for that. But the time to study, the time to prepare, the time to write, the time to record, that's not free. It's always exchanged for something else. Now, a lot of people would look at it and go, but you own the studio, you own the cameras, you own the microphones. You don't at least have to pay out of pocket every time you want to record something. That's true. But I didn't get them for free. In fact, some of the very expensive equipment that I have, I couldn't afford to buy it. And so I worked to pay for it. I traded my talent, my skills, my gifts, my abilities to take what would have cost me $4,000 or $5,000, and I worked off as much of it as I could and still had to come out of pocket with $500 to $1,000 to buy it. I have cameras right here in this studio that each camera alone would have been about $5,000, a whole lot of free labor for each of them. Some of them I just found after the manufacturer had thought they're discontinued, we're going to make another one, we're going to make a better one. And even though they were retail priced at almost $1,000 a piece, I picked them up for a couple $100. That still adds up. Microphones that are $200 or $300 each, some that are $700. That adds up. The dream is free. The journey is not. The journey is going to cost you. Sometimes it's cold hard cash. Sometimes it's exchanging your labor, your gifts, your skills, your talents for cold hard cash or for the products and services that you need. The question still remains the same though. Are you willing to pay the price now so you can play later? Without a map, without a scale, without a graph, there's no way I could have looked 30 years ago into my marriage and said, we'll have cars repossessed, we'll have a home foreclosed on, we'll spend time living in somebody else's trailer house in the country because we can't afford to live because we've given up everything to try to fight to save our house. If I had selected those things from a menu 30 years ago, I would have been insane. 30 years ago, those weren't on my list of options. I wasn't planning for those things. But here we are 30 years later with a strong marriage. Oh, we've made mistakes. It's cost us. But the dream is still ahead of us, and we haven't given up on it. The dream is free. The journey is not. If you could sit down right now, whether you're 25, 55, or 75, and you could look forward and say, that's the dream that I want. That's the vision that I see in my mind's eye. That's what just lights my heart up because I want to achieve that. I want to fulfill that before I'm done on this earth. And you could also plan out every dollar it's going to cost you, every step along the way, every journey, every place that you will appear, every little city and burg, every nation you'll visit. If you could plan all those things out, how many disasters, calamities, and heartaches would you write in? Probably none. I mean, it's not the course of our nature to desire the pain or the cost. We don't want to factor the price. I've worked with many clients in the past that when we start to work together, they're like, just help me write the speech that sells. And some of them are thinking, I want one speech that I can tell over and over. And others are thinking, help me write a speech that'll help me sell my product, my course, my life, my business, whatever it is. But almost none of them realize when we start working together how much the stories they've lived through have shaped the who that they are. Now, some would say up front, yeah, I get that. I know how my experiences have brought me to where I am. And many of those who have that acknowledgement, that awareness of their stories, that they're like, but that's my past and I'm done with that and I want to move forward. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's great that you want to move forward, but remember, wherever you go, there you are. And so if you've got this trauma in your life that you haven't dealt with, it keeps creeping up into your stories. And inadvertently, unintentionally, unconsciously, you might reveal a secret about yourself while talking to somebody else that you thought was still a secret. And it's not. In fact, sometimes we wear those secrets on our face. There's a great book. I can't say the name of the author because I've heard it 3 or 4 times and I'm not even sure that I've written it down right. But the book, the concept is called The Body Keeps Score. Now think about that for a minute. How often have you looked back at that journey of yours from the dream that you have right now or the dream you had 25 years ago? How many times have you looked back on that journey and went, yeah, I got scars on my hands, scars on my knees, scars on my legs, on my face, on my back, and my forehead from the journey that I've been on. Well, the body keeps score. Those scars, they tell you something. Sometimes those scars are only on the heart or they're only in the mind. People who have been addicted to various substances all of their life, the way their mind functions isn't the same as a normal person. In fact, maybe not even functioning the same now that it did when they were kids, when they were teenagers, when they were young adults, because the damage done by these alternating substances, they alter the mind for the moment, but sometimes they leave permanent scars as they do, and the body keeps score. Sometimes those stories, they don't show up they don't show up as a scar, like a mark in the tissue. They show up as a high blood pressure, heart disease, arthritis. Dr. Caroline Leaf says that 75 to 98% of the chronic illnesses in the human body start with toxic thinking. The dream is free. The journey is going to cost you. What will it cost you? Well, if you don't maintain your life well, your medical practices, your personal disciplines, your relationships, it could cost you mental health. It could cost you your physical health. Your physiology and your mentality, they're directly tied together. And if you're not maintaining those well, if you're not taking good care of yourself, then the body keeps score, and then the body's going to show it. It might be in a bad diet. It might be in bad habits. It might be in bad ways that you take care of yourself, or you don't. See, the challenge for many of us is we haven't looked at the dream and then counted the cost that we're willing to pay. We've looked at the dream and thought, well, if I dream it, it'll happen. And in many cases, it will. But it probably won't happen at the pace that you thought. In fact, one of my mentors, used to be my boss, says all the time, whatever it is that you think you're going to accomplish, it's going to take longer than you planned. It's going to cost more than you planned. And in the end, it'll still be worth it, but it's going to be a bigger investment than you thought. And if you're looking at the dream in your life at 15, 25, 35, 45, 55, and you're thinking to yourself, as long as I can dream it, I can make it happen. Well, there is a lot of truth to that. But I want you to hold this truth as well. If you can dream it, you can make it happen. If you can't dream it, you'll never make it happen. I don't remember who originally said it. It might have been Norman Vincent Peale. It may have been somebody before that who said, most people say, I'll believe it when I see it. But the truth is, if you don't believe it, you'll never see it. Well, that's the truth behind your dream. If you don't believe it, if you don't have a dream worth fighting for, you won't believe it. And if you don't believe it, you'll never see it. If your vision doesn't compel you against all the odds are you'll not see it. Someone said once of Walt Disney, I believe it was his grandson, they said, can you imagine this? It would be so awesome if Walt could see Disney World now. And his grandson said, if he hadn't seen it in his mind's eye a million times, we wouldn't be seeing this now. He's already seen it all. The dream is free, but the journey is going to cost you. Are you willing to sacrifice for the dream that you hold in your heart? Are you willing to pay the price for the vision that you see in your future? Are you willing to do the hard things? Study the books. Make the financial choices that are unpleasant. Live through those things that happen in your life where you're literally simply done wrong. You didn't do anything wrong, but wrong happened to you. Disaster came your way. I have a friend I just shared a text with a couple of days ago. He texted me out of the blue. We haven't talked in several months. And I said, I think I'm going to change your name from pastor to storm chaser. He lost his 10-plus acre ranch in North Texas to a tornado that came through and just destroyed everything. It was, I believe they registered as an F5. Destroyed everything. I walked through his master bedroom where 30-foot steel beams had come from across the street, through the roof of his house, through the second story, through the first floor, and into the wall only inches above the bed where his wife's head would have been had she been still asleep in her bed. And then he moved to Florida. And in less than 2 weeks, they had a hurricane. And then before the winter was over, Florida had a blizzard. The dream is free, but the journey is going to cost you. It's going to be painful. It's going to be heartbreaking. It's going to be expensive. It could be devastating. But if you stay the course for the dream that you hold, for the vision that you've seen, you can achieve it. If you can believe it, you can achieve it. Do you believe me? How bad do you want it? Are you willing to put up with everything that comes your way? And some of it, honestly, it seems like it's just the test to see how bad you want it. Will you hold on even when the wind is blowing? Will you stay the course even through the storm? If the answer is yes, then you will see your dream. If you can see it and you can believe it, you can achieve it. That's another one you should look up and find the original author of, because that's a powerful concept. When you find them, do some reading around that. It'll change the way you think about you and everything in life. But I'm going to tell you right now, John Maxwell is right. I know from my own life. I've lived the experience. I've mentored dozens who have also walked through it. The dream is free, but the journey is going to cost you. Ask yourself, how bad do you want it? And are you willing to pay the price? I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. I encourage you to go to storypoweracademy.com and check it out. Look at the different classes, the different levels, the different things that are available. You can take a lot of them a la carte. But spend some time there and see if that's the kind of thing that would change the way you communicate as a leader, as a pastor, as a counselor, as a political leader. And if that will help you, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Again, only 10 people in the Elite Speakers. You will have to apply for that. But if you're a candidate, I'd love to have that conversation with you. I'm J Loren Norris with Story Power Academy. I look forward to seeing you inside.